So there may be a growing feeling of constraint on the earth in some sense, but also an feeling that an extraordinarily dramatic power is irking in the background or lurking in the background, irking us as it lurks in the background. Um, but what fashion of mental discipline does this demand of us? So it's like here's the we're in the moment when, from one end of the world to the other end, the name of Vance has sort of cropped up everywhere. They're talking about Vance in Russia and so on. So I just want to use a comment or a little exchange point on Vance's adducing his sort of, I guess, paraphrasing or like what he takes to. This is something Justice Rehnquist said to mean in the context of these questions that Rogan's raising around religion in schools. As the jump-off point to ask the question whether Vance is in the proper and positive acceptation of fascist, according to the sort of, we'll do sort of quasi-Heideggerian phenomenology a little bit. I can't guarantee that totally, because partially I'll just be consulting scholarly sources and sort of like seeing more on the side of Thomas Sheehan, the great scholar of Heidegger, and less on the side of Caputo, who's like more favors, just sort of wandering around. But we'll probably do a little bit of both. But so let's ask, how does the theory of fascism stand vis-a-vis the idea, which we see in a prominent form in Dante's Monarchia around 1314, I think it came out, where what his main storm and stress issue is that he was a partisan of the popes, but then he's like realized some of the popes are really corrupt and are worldly, and he was mixed up in this moment of the confusion of the spheres of the eternity as represented by the Gulifs, and that of worldly things, or the secular, is represented by Xerxes, or the earthly power, as it were, the Holy Roman Emperor, and the Ghibellines. So he maintains totally, already we have this big statement, Monarchia. It's a globalist statement. All countries will be eventually subordinated under one power, but that one power must have a separation between the church, between the secular and the spiritual realms. Let me make one sort of side. So what we're going to do is, let me just state it as like to make clear what we're doing. What we're doing is we're looking at these two realms as they developed out of Plato's teachings. And then we're saying when these two realms totally break down, you get this third thing, and it's called fascism. And then that fascism isn't necessarily bad, but maybe it's sort of like, maybe you had one genuine case of fascism with Hitler, and then you look at the death camps and you say, well, this was definitely bad. But that isn't. But then you could still ask, maybe since we only have one case, maybe actually fascism isn't bad. Maybe it's more like what Aristotle said. It's like it's something that if you use it correctly, it's good, because then you have state capacity. I've alluded to the Fukuyama theme. I've been off mentioning. The trouble with state capacity, and then in the British form, we're sort of seeing that in this, I think, in this debates with this Gary Stevenson stuff. Because Stevenson's claims that the division in Britain is between the Piers Morgan types and everyone else on the point of whether there should be a wealth tax or not a wealth tax, and whether that would actually make any sense. So the Rehnquist remark by Vance is to say that if one would equally sort of forbid all religious symbols in public life, one would then thereby announce a new religion, which would be secularism. So like that's what actually holds sway, and they call it laissez-faire. We have an actual example of that in France, which means like in practice that you're not allowed to wear a cross or something if you're in a post office or a government building in France of any kind, or in a courtroom, and then if you ask for a reason, they tell you because nobody can have a special distinction, which makes a certain rational sense. I could see the point to it. It's not arbitrary. It's rational because the notion is everybody should be on the side of science, and there's only really one science. That's basically what the French secularism is about. And then, you could look at Diderot and this kind of things. The encyclopedias. But it shows it's a special religion if you take it like that. But then the problem is actually you never quite know where you are in that. So you're always in this extraordinary drama, right? You're always in this terrific apocalypse. So then we have the statement. All right, so we have de facto, we have the statement of fascism in Mussolini and Giovanni Gentili, and basically they started with a theory of materialism, because Mussolini was a Marxist, and Giovanni Gentili was also sort of in the tradition, but he is Hegelian, who's been a student of Croce, who's like a neo-Hegelian, or or more, I guess you'd say it's more similar to when people say of the teacher of Husserl, Brentano, that Brentano is some kind of throwback to the Middle Ages. He's some kind of strange scholastic or something. It's as though Croce it's again sort of a genuine Hegelianism, sort of cropped up out of its natural sequence of events. And then so it had more originary sort of all its newness, its freshness was there, and it's people were sort of heated up by its fire, animated by its fire. And then you have this statement by Gentili in the context of Mussolini's realization that he couldn't keep with the Marxism in the metaphysical sense. So they make a new statement, and the statement is basically, we don't know the difference between secularism and Calvinism and Catholicism and etc. We could identify the actual cases sometimes, in other words, it's, as it were, edifying to identify the actual case of France as a real laissez-faire state, and then you see it. It has a specific form. It's something. It's this is. It corresponds to behavior, as with you're not allowed to wear any symbols that give you a sign of distinction. It's we're part of this group. Everyone's part of the same statement on the logical, the same statement on, just as countries are, either have the metric system or they have some other system, everyone is mentally forced into this sort of, or if not mentally, sort of de facto by the fact that everyone else does it that way, forced into this space. fascism, and this is why they use the term the leader, um, Dolce. Is that the right word? I'm saying, how's it called? Leader and El Duce. Excuse me. Yet there may be some kind of primary pleasure also in the fascism that's susceptible of some kind of Lacanian treatment or something. But let's leave aside this lapses for the second and only pursue this point at hand, is that you also get the same statement with Hitler, right? The Führer. It's a simple notion of the guide or the leader. And then we get another statement in Heidegger, because he writes his Forest Path dialogue, which it's sort of uncanny, but it's sort of exactly the same plot as Stalker. But when you look at it, it doesn't add up. I don't think it's like plagiarized by this. There's a Russian source, and it's like something like, oh, I forget what it is, like Monday Morning Breakfast or something. It's some short story, and it somehow doesn't look up by the dates or whatever that it could have. I think Heidegger's Forest Path thing came out after that story was written, but before the movie was made, something like that. It doesn't really, I don't see the direct connection, but nonetheless, if the movie Stalker by Tarkovsky, Dugan says Tarkovsky is pretentious. I think it's right, because his shows always tried to show like, here's some aesthetic picture and how beautiful it is and so on. It's like the bad version of the Russian Deep Soul, like the fake sort of version. Whereas like Dugan's saying, like, it's pretentious. It's like pretending to show you something that is not capable of showing because it's aesthetic. It's like instead of, either you could have a boring lecture on something like the history of the Greek myths by a classical scholar, or you could have something stupid like the 300 movie. It's like you have this choice between something boring that's just like factual, or something stupid like the 300 movie. And then at the height of something stupid, you get Tarkovsky is like the best at giving you the stupid aesthetic version. I think that's sort of, in a way, that's how Dugan sees Tarkovsky. Okay, but nonetheless, we have this situation where Heidegger has a special version of the guide or the leader, or the Führer, the force, the one that takes you along, the methodos, or methodos. It's like odos means already path, so methodos could mean beyond the path, but it could also mean with the path. Methodos, and then connected to our word method, and then sort of like, if you're in continental philosophy, has become a pejorative in the sense that it's associated with Descartes. We have this idea of the guide, and what is it? It's the one has the full consciousness of this problem of the breakdown of the Platonic realms, which then correspond to this problem of the Rehnquist, that Vance is saying Rehnquist has raised, that there's one position where if you ignore the role of religious symbols too much, you then de facto fix on this one position, like France did. The problem then becomes we become conscious, the historical consciousness first with Hegel, is this notion of the it's identical to the notion of the commonplace notion today of presentism, that there's a standard of the time. When this awareness is taken into account, how powerful a problem it is, this is the moment that Plato breaks down. Um, and at the same time, that means this is the moment where it's really seen that this sphere of Xerxes and this sphere of Christ, um, it's, uh, they're in the extraordinary drama that we're trying to sort of find the right fashion of mental discipline to constrain, as it were. And then you have the notion of, I think, of fascism. It's a keen awareness of the actual possibilities of the state as against liberalism, where liberalism is the insistence that there's this distinction between these realms, and ignoring all these primary problems. So like if you insist that the science is the true religion, everyone should follow science, then you find out there's these people that have made the flight from science, they're accused of making the flight from rationality, but apparently they have a good reason, because science, according to what it says of itself, it could only tell you the facts, it can't tell you, it could only tell you the ises, according to the Hume version, but it can't tell you the odds. It could only tell you the case in a generic, some chemist comes out and tells you what the facts are, and then he says, oh, but I say nothing about whether this was right or wrong. It could only tell you the generic things. It can't tell you about the good, the true, and the beautiful, or the transcendentals. You realize that, and you say, maybe there's a reason to go away from this form of government called liberalism, which is its highest representative is Ursula von der Leyen, most perfect representative and most selfless servant of this. You may see, then there's sort of, it becomes questionable, what is rationality? Because somebody's saying that all of his quoting the scientific facts is